Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
Happy 2019, weirdos.
Happy New Year!
Yeah. We kid because we're weirdos, and we got a lot of weird things to talk to you about today.
Takes one to know one, you know?
Yeah, I would say 2018, there was plenty of weird paranormal stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And we kicked off the year with our first episode was a New Year's resolution for paranormal research in 2018. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I
didn't
do
get
remember
maimed.
that.
I didn't get maimed. Sad to
No,
say.
no.
I'm still working on it.
No, but remember that we had the resolution for paranormal research, not just the resolution for getting
Being victimized.
Not just my personal resolution of getting attacked by a ghost.
We did have
I'm
personal
narrowly
resolutions,
escaping
but
with my life. Sorry.
the episode itself was a New Year's resolution for paranormal research. And that was our strong hope that there would be integrity returned to the field of paranormal research. So what do you guys think? Now that we're a whole year later.
Ooh.
What, it was a massive fail.
I think integrity is going to take more than a year. I think, the people who have been showing integrity, for decades, those parapsychological researchers, they're still showing it. But people are more interested or maybe just less knowledgeable about them than people like Zach Bagans, for instance. I mean, that's what lots of people consider real paranormal research when it's really just entertainment.
No one considers Zach Bagans real paranormal research. Let's just get that out there. No,
But he's taken years to build up his paranormal credibility, as he says at the very beginning of his episode.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah.
But I did have, this is years ago, but I met with someone who I was going to possibly start the LA and Hollywood ghost tour company with. And she actually said to me during our little meet and greet that we'll worry about telling a good story first and the facts second. And that was the only meeting I had with her. No way am I going to go into business with this person.
Man, seriously. Boo.
I would say nothing has changed. In that most of the blogs I read are still don't bother doing much of a follow up. They don't really bother doing much of like verification of anything. So it pretty much it's all the same. And plus the documentaries that came out this year. I mean, starting with Zach Bagans himself and the Demon House.
Demon House.
Winner.
Right?
Well, let's be honest. It was a little unfair of us to say that we were having a resolution for paranormal research when so much of it is out of our hands. But I think for the research that we did individually and as a group, I think we had the utmost integrity.
Well, and a lot of new opportunities came our way in 2018. So, there's
right.
a lot that we were able to do personally. And I understand what you're saying, Wendy, but I mean, somebody's got to say something. And if it's us, it's got to be us.
No. I was just saying that the episode being a New Year's resolution it's like usually when you make a resolution, it's something that you can control, that you.
Yeah.
And
like
it was more of our hope
or...
for 2018.
But this is the first step. Talking about it openly is the first step.
Definitely.
And
for
we've
sure.
seen with other people who are coming from TV. I mean, I think Grant Wilson, for example, is, he's very interested in doing some real research. He comes
Absolutely.
to it, from a background of, it's TV, but I think in his heart, he really believes that, parapsychological research should unite with what's going on amongst the more casual ghost hunters.
Well, that's exactly a good segue into what Scott kind of wanted to bring up as his story for the day. Today we're going over the best paranormal stories and topics and stuff like that we saw in 2018. And Scott, we were just talking to it before we started that you had mentioned Grant Wilson was one of the people who talked about the topic you wanted to bring up today.
Yeah, and actually, just to piggyback on that a little bit more, Grant has been very frustrated with trying to bring new shows to the air because what he wants to do doesn't quite match up with the TV criteria, and that's why he went and off and made his own YouTube channel, is just doing what he wants to do there, and it's just kind of like being honest and not trying to be showy and entertaining, but just informational. So hats off to that. But something that I always find fascinating is when, for whatever reason, a theory takes hold and maybe begins to present itself in studies more and more often. Because you would think that something that happens in the paranormal world just continues to happen at the same rate of occurrence, and the same observations are made year in, year out. But when, for whatever reason, we start to see something that was only just a theory starts to present itself more and more, you start to wonder, is something changing on the other side? Or is there something changing about how we are able to perceive the other side? And something that because we went out and we got to have a lot of fun at a number of different awesome events across the country this year. One topic that came up frequently from John Tenney to Dave Schrader and, of course, Grant Wilson is the idea that we're haunting ourselves, that we are witnessing something that maybe we even did, but it's coming across to us in this ghostly form, and we are attributing it to a paranormal occurrence. And John Tenney had this amazing long story, which I won't fully get into here, but he was helping investigate a house where this old woman would hear children laughing and playing in the house. And there's no history of kids ever living in this house, and he was never able to figure out what was going on. And many years go by, he decides he wants to stop in and pay a visit to this lady and see what's new. Is the occurrence is still happening? And that woman has either passed away or moved away, but now that house is full of children. And so was this woman hearing into the future of the house? And so that idea that time is kind of overlapping onto itself and bleeding through in some way, that's something that we heard, again, all of these different people talk about. So why all of a sudden are we hearing these stories? I have no answer for that, but I find it fascinating.
You know, we had an episode kind of about that, about how people are processing time and the whole idea of the block universe. That, to go back to the episode where we talked about it, the idea of the block universe is that, we exist in 3 dimensions, right? Like we go to see movies now, they're in 3D too. Everything's in 3D.
Yeah.
But so we exist in 3 dimensions, but then we also exist in time. And when you think about the entirety of the universe, you picture it in time as, like right now I'm talking to you and it's like a slice of time in the universe. So that's like another dimension is this slice. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but every second is like a slice. And when you look at the universe as a whole, you can see the whole pie. And time happens at once, and we just experience it backward to forward.
Pie.
Yeah, making everybody hungry.
Right. But we experience it moving forward. And so this idea of everything having happened at once, that completely fits in with the time bleeds thing, because maybe you're seeing a different slice of the good old time pie.
And I like how Dave Schrader, the first time I heard talk about this, it was Dave Schrader at a Chicago Ghost Conference many, many years ago at this point. And he said, we always visualize time being a beginning to end, just a piece of string going in one direction. But what if that string is just crumpled up into a million, just into a ball? And just everywhere the string is rubbing against itself, that's where we're seeing a bleed through.
Of course, Dave would talk about things rubbing against themselves.
But these ideas are ancient. That time is cyclical. So they go back to a lot of indigenous peoples and their concept of time. So it's interesting to talk about things that may be changing, because there seems to be a lot of change as well around ETs or contacts with other intelligences. I think we might be making a breakthrough in that area, but I'm not sure. We're referring to maybe disclosure. That's what I'm wondering the most about. Of course, last year, right at the end of last year, I think it was around the 15th of December 2017, which was actually the big Silver Bridge collapse 50th anniversary. So maybe but it was right around then. But that's why
Okay, we're talking about the Silver Bridge Mothman 50th anniversary.
Yeah, that date is strong in my mind, but it's also right around then when the New York Times broke its discussion about the possibility of the government still studying the UFO phenomena and actual, Navy pilots having interactions with these strange objects. Now, I mean, that was a big news story, and also in 2017.
The only reason it was a big news story was because the guy from Blink-182, because he was in charge, because it's the same crap we've seen from Kenneth Arnold in 1947.
Okay.
And the New York Times is like, hey, the guy from Blink-182, maybe we can get some clicks.
Right. Well, okay. So, yes. Let's explore that. But also, I wasn't going to really go into that. I was going to talk about the strange object that came close to Earth in October of 2017. And it actually just made news again in 2018 in November. And that's something that is an object from another solar system. And it was given a Hawaiian name because it was spotted by a telescope in Hawaii first. And I always freak out when I have to pronounce it, but it's Oumuamua. Do you remember that?
Which is different
guys?
than King Yama Yama from the Fruit Islands.
Yeah. Oumuamua actually means, according to experts, that I don't know, it means messenger from the past, which is kind of interesting, going with, what you were talking about, Scott Marcus, about time and it kind of coming back to us. But an expert that I do know, Lopaka Kapanui from Hawaii Paracon, he says that it actually means messenger from far away. So either way, it's a compelling story because this object spotted by a telescope in Hawaii in October of 2017 really got scientists to notice. Here's this strange object. They can't actually see it. They have to visualize it through the way it's emanating light through the way that it's reacting with light, let's say. And so, at first they thought it was like a mile long and it was an elongated, almost a cylindrical object. And then they changed their mind, and then the calculation said that it was, something like a flattened oval. But scientists took notice because it seemed to accelerate. It seemed to be of a craft type of shape. And there's been a recent article that talked about how this is changing the way we're discussing the possibility of alien spacecraft. A Harvard researcher raised the possibility that it's a probe sent by extraterrestrials. I don't know if you guys saw that part of the story.
Oh yeah.
Which came out in November. But they're elevating the discussion of possible extraterrestrials, possible intelligent life in space. And there was a recent article that talked about how this interaction with this object has made it respectable to talk about the possibility of an alien spacecraft coming near Earth, and how would we know if it's a spacecraft or if it's a natural object. So they're working that out now, what would be the criteria that you would be looking for.
Well, where was this? How far away was this?
Well, it sounds really far away to me. It was 15 million miles away, but astronomically that's quite close. And
that's like next door.
It was within our solar system, at least.
Okay,
yes.
so it was within the solar system.
All right.
But it came from another solar system, they say.
Cool. That's exciting.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, this news story is awesome because Harvard researchers are looking at it and saying there's a possibility that this might have been a light sail craft. that a light sail is something that a type of craft that it absorbs solar energy, and that's how it flies.
Ooh.
And it's like, oh my God, what is going on here? Harvard researchers are saying this. It's pretty provocative.
That's awesome.
And they're not being drummed out or anything like that. They're not like, get out of here, Timothy Leary, or anything like that. They're, people are listening to him.
Well, I think the trend, so far we're talking about trends in 2018. I think the trends so far, when it comes to UFOs and aliens, I think you find a lot less scientific pushback than you do with psychic powers and ghosts. And I think it's because on the sides of the culture war, it's okay to believe in aliens, but it's not okay to believe in God. And ghosts and all that kind of stuff have a religious aspect to it. And unless we're talking about like alien sex cults and stuff, which if you have an alien sex cult, please send me your information.
Please contact us immediately.
Oh gosh,
just an invite to the Facebook group at least.
Yes, I'm just interested in seeing your paperwork. Maybe your a quick PowerPoint. But the thing is that besides like the people that worship aliens, or like you think of the cults and everything, the Raelians and Heaven's Gate, and aliens are also very, they're just believable to atheists. So I think you're going to see a lot less pushback from that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that crossover is amazing. That, people who are atheists, still find something for them in our discussion.
Right. Oh, yeah.
So subscribe to our podcast, please. But
you got to believe in something.
Yeah.
And it's like it's bred into us. I mean, even there's the book, The God Gene. And if you can't believe that in Jesus, then maybe you want to believe that Jesus was an alien.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just think that things do seem to be changing. And I know there's a lot of argument right now about, there'll never be disclosure because, the government can't possibly admit to having this knowledge of extraterrestrial contact with humans. But I'm wondering what you guys think. I mean, I can totally see the argument that they wouldn't want to admit openly to a lot of these things because then it might open them to, possible legal action or, some people finding fault in, what they did or didn't do. But I'm just thinking it's such a big thing that, maybe that would push it forward. Maybe that people would, scientists involved would think that, no, people have the right to know, whether it's a good thing or not. What do you guys think? Do you think that disclosure is coming?
No.
Once there's a way to politicize it or profit off, I don't see there being much of a need or even the need for the secrecy. I just think it's just such a low priority in the political realm.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like they're going to hold off as long as possible until it becomes unavoidable.
Right.
Because it's Independence Day. We're looking up in the sky and seeing the ships floating over us or something. But I don't know.
I think John Podesta would have found out when he was chief of staff. Like he would have gone in there and he would have, like if he would actually found out something when he was the right-hand man of our imperial president.
He was the hand of the king.
Yeah, and when he was, so when he was there, and now he's still looking for it, or he wouldn't even have a meeting with the dude from Blink 182. He'd be like, no, forget about it. So I think if there was something out there, and I don't know how they'd keep a secret for 70 years.
That's a big one. That is a big one.
But have they kept the secret? Or, do they just, put something out there, put a little bit out there, and, enough to, release the pressure. But they don't, come out wholesale and admit to it. I mean, that was pretty dramatic, I think, to find out that there possible, the New York Times reporting that there's possible alien artifacts that are being studied by Bob Bigelow. I mean, hello, that's a big thing.
Right, but also, yes, and Bob Bigelow was just on 60 Minutes talking about it too, and he's like, I absolutely believe in aliens, you bet. And then he declines to talk more about it. And I just think the fact that these guys won't be straight with it, it's almost like someone's writing the script for them. It's like when you were watching Lost. Now you're watching Lost, and sometimes like all of these problems could be avoided if people just answered the freaking questions.
That's true.
Like if everybody wasn't such a god darn mystery about everything, and they just answered people like you would in normal life, I guess the show would be 18 minutes long.
That's true.
But I mean, when you have like ABC News, or not ABC, sorry, NBC News reporting that two Harvard researchers who suggested last month a mysterious object viewed tumbling past the sun last year, known as Oumuamua, could be an alien spacecraft, has made such theories respectable. NBC News reported Tuesday. I mean,
okay, well, it's cool
that's
that I mean,
big.
I agree. I just I think Oumuamua is a cool story, and I hope that they decide to beam over here or whatever. And I hope nobody like next time Oumuamua comes by, I hope nobody like jumps in a bunch of Nikes and poisons himself.
Right.
Oh, man.
Right. Yeah, we don't want that. But I think there's maybe some change happening when you see stories being covered in the New York Times or NBC reporting that it's acceptable to talk about the possibility of alien spacecraft entering our solar system. I mean, that seems like a change.
I think that's an awesome change. I do agree with you. I'm a little more cynical about it though, and I think it's for the clicks, because none of these things are headlines.
Well, isn't everything for the clicks? That's the problem.
But the thing is, the difference between the mass media accepting and spreading these things around and a government officially acknowledging it, you know, it's becoming popular. The paranormal world is cool now.
I think the best evidence of aliens is Donald Trump's Space Force.
Space Force!
Space Force!
Well,
Like,
at least he's such a
like,
loose cannon that, I mean, if he got some alien information, I think he would leak it totally.
we need
yeah.
the best spaceships, the best lasers, the best. No, but the thing is, maybe they came up, they're like, they're coming, Don. And he's like, oh, crap. And so he's like, call up the Space Force.
But you know he would, like Allison said, he'll share it if he gets any
Yeah, he
info.
woun't do that on the down low.
He'd have tweeted it out right away.
Right.
He could have actually like put a picture in or something like that. Of, like him
like
and
a
the aliens.
selfie with
Yeah. Check this out. I am the greatest ambassador of the planet Earth ever. Because I'm
That's
not,
right.
you know.
I'm not
Gonna be
stopping
huge.
here. I'm going to bypass the world and like take over the solar.
What he'd probably do is he'd try to put a Trump Tower on Mars. That would be the thing. That would be the whole reason for disclosure, would just be so he could put a Trump Tower on Mars.
If he found out there was lakefront property there, he'd be all over it.
Well, speaking of reality TV, now, Wendy, your favorite paranormal thing in 2018 was a reality TV show, right?
yeah. Actually, the show.
It was Ghost Adventures.
I have watched.
Sorry.
I admit I've watched a fair amount of that, but the one that I really enjoyed this year was the Expedition Unknown. Had like a little mini series, Search for the Afterlife. So it was a 4-episode mini little investigation into the afterlife. So he talked about like crossing over, and he interviewed a bunch of people who had had near-death experiences. He delved into several different religious beliefs about where your soul goes. And he, in the finale episode, he actually went and did the ayahuasca. I'm going to say this wrong.
Josh Gates did this? I gotta
Ayahuasca.
watch this one.
Oh yeah, it's so good. And it like the 4th episode where he does the ayahuasca trip, where, you know, a lot of people believe that it takes you to the brink of the afterlife.
Yeah.
That was the best coverage I've seen of somebody going through that process. And admittedly, I haven't dug too deep, but I've heard about it and read about it. And he actually did it, and he had his cameraman there the whole time. And so you got to see him go through all the ritual part of it. And then afterwards, he gets a recap of what it was. And his mind was clearly blown afterwards. So
Did he say anything crazy?
during the thing,
Like, did they tape him being like, oh man, I can't believe like these elephants are floating across the room, holy balls.
it was more like
Yeah.
just footage of him kind of looking stunned and confused a little bit, and then getting sick.
Yeah. He wasn't like, here comes the goddess of ayahuasca. Now her snake body is entwining around my spine. It wasn't like
Right.
a play-by-play like that.
No, I think
Did they
that's
show him,
that
like,
was
Make love to
puking
the
and
earth.
that's in the
pooping his
pay-per-view on
pants and
Allison.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was extra.
Well, where can we watch this? Because I have not seen it yet.
Well, it's on.
And I love Josh Gates.
Yeah, it's on Discovery.
If you have on demand, it's still within that.
Yeah, and
world.
you can like buy the episodes, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna check Amazon right after the show. I really do mean.
You should see it. You would like it, I think. But the whole thing was neat, and it was especially cool, I thought, because it kind of came to my attention as these cable shows do when we were staying in a hotel, actually at the Shooting Star Paracon one night. You know, we all got up to the room and put the TV on, as you do, because there's all those cable channels. We're flipping through.
Yes.
And it was on, and so that caught my attention. But then it was one of those, we only saw part of it, and it was like, on the next episode, and it really left us hanging, so I had to go back and watch it. But the cool thing was that throughout the series, there were several people that we've met and interacted with this year, including Chip Coffey had a huge segment, and he did a reading.
The man that stole my scarf look.
He did. But he had a whole setup at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery, which Scott and I have been to and wandered around, and he did a reading on Josh Gates, and that was also like, you know how I feel about psychic mediums. I'm still like the jury's.
You're less than medium on them.
Yeah, I think.
But like Chip
I don't
Coffey,
think it's not controversial to say the jury's still out on psychic mediums.
Well, hey,
I don't know if I believe all of them.
Hey, you can say that, Mike, but a lot of people do believe in them and believe that it's legitimate. And from meeting so many people at these paranormal conferences, and we've been to so many of them now that Chip Coffey's been at, and a lot of people have the readings with him, and they come back and they're like, it was unreal. It was so. I was excited to see him like actually do the Josh Gates reading. And then one more thing. They also, in one of the episodes, Josh Gates explores ghost hunting and just the whole, the culture around it, which of course to us is fascinating. And one of the things that he did was he went to the Queen Mary, where once again, Grant Wilson comes up here because he was in that episode along with Adam Berry. And they do a whole investigation on the Queen Mary, which is another place that I've been to. So the series really resonated with me, and I thought it was a neat way to discuss the whole topic of life after death, or whatever is after death for us.
And Amy Bruni was on that episode as well.
Yeah,
and
that's
again,
right.
These are all people that we met primarily through the Michigan Paracon.
Yeah.
Right. It's also a great way for the Discovery Channel to promote their other show.
Exactly. It's true.
Because the Discovery Networks own all of that
It was
stuff.
called Crossing Over, so that episode.
Oh, and they also, Allison,
Right.
they also had in one of the episodes, he was a witness at an exorcism. So,
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes.
that was
Well,
exciting.
for sure, I'm gonna watch it tonight then.
And
Thank you so much.
he-
I can't believe I missed that.
He also meets with Deepak Chopra in one episode.
really?
And it goes to a Russian cryogenics lab where there's these huge tanks that have like 50 dead bodies and sometimes just severed heads in them. It really looks into all sorts of ideas and beliefs and theories about the afterlife, and it goes into some very off the beaten path locations. You guys have heard of the hanging coffins? I can't even remember what country that's in, where they
oh, yeah.
try to ascend people a little bit. So they are literally, these coffins are just hanging off of cliff sides or way up high in caves.
Right.
And
No, I've never heard of that. Where's that?
okay, that's an easy one to look up.
Yeah, hold on. I can find it right now.
He also, Josh Gates, previously on Destination Truth, did a whole episode doing paranormal investigations at that site. But there's another, I think it's a South American culture where people live with their deceased relatives for a couple of years, and it's just kind of normal that there are corpses in the house, that they have
Sure.
their clothes changed.
Just like Norman
there we
Bates.
go, yeah.
Indonesia.
Right. Yeah.
People.
There's
That's
also,
where the people live with the mummies.
various locations: China, Philippines, Indonesia.
Oh, the hanging coffins. Well, I got to get a new background for my computer desktop then. I always think about that Josh Gates when he was searching for the afterlife in that episode, because we're at the convention and we went, like, hadn't eaten all day. We're just at the booth all day, and then went to the buffet, and I ate myself.
Yes, you did. Literally.
Like,
so sad.
supposed to go hang out at the bar with everybody from the convention, and then it was like, oh,
Yeah, you were
I
out,
sat in
man.
the bathroom for 5 minutes. I thought I was gonna.
You were sick
vomit. Like, I'm
before the
sitting there
bar.
going, I know. I couldn't believe it. Like, I'd never eaten so much that I thought I was going to vomit. And that's what happened that day. And so we went up to the room, and everybody passed out. We just kind of watching Josh Gates in the background. And then I'm like, oh my God, we drove 8 hours to be here. I've got to go party with somebody or talk to him or something. So I went back downstairs and I'd lost $200 the night before and I won it all back.
There you go.
Yeah.
That night. So I feel
was
like
lucky.
Josh Gates is my lucky charm.
Yes.
And I'm going to rub his belly every time I go to the casino from now on.
Oh, and I'm going to see him in January.
And to bring it full circle, Allison, you were in the elevator with him
I won. I was close enough to rub
in
his belly.
2018. So
I didn't because I thought that might be awkward. But my husband did talk to him on the phone. He was like, "I love you, man. I
That
love
was
you."
awesome.
We're seeing Josh Gates when he comes to Milwaukee in January. So I'm excited
Cool.
about that. Now, as far as these paranormal shows, for me, Josh Gates has done the best job on those shows because
Agreed.
as you can see with that mini series he did with Afterlife, and he's also done a mini series through not Destination Truth, sorry, Expedition Unknown, looking for the Yeti. He did search for the Yeti as well. So I mean, he really tries to do what hasn't been done before, and he's very informed culture-wise. So that's really cool.
I agree.
Well, I think he's the best because they give him some money. Like they let him actually go places. An Expedition Unknown, they
go
get to go
great
to Russia. They get
places.
to go to Indonesia.
Yeah.
Like
So, yeah, it's different than everything being like whitewashed through, just like this middle class white perspective.
well, the problem is, you're only going to get the middle class white perspective when you only have enough money. Like the Haunted Towns guys, like the Tennessee Wraith Chasers, like they only get to travel like 20 minutes away, for their show. They're like, we get to this another place in Tennessee. Or the Ghost Brothers, do they even ever leave
Oh
LA?
yeah, no, they do a lot of southern plantation type stuff, which is
they went to
really unique.
Austin, Texas
Oh yeah, they went looking for
that's
Emma.
right. They did go to Austin and sing.
with our buddies.
I just mean it was not. I like the Josh Gates shows because you can tell they put enough in the budget where it's like, okay, let's travel the world, and then you can get that cultural stuff and you can learn new things, and it's not just like, hey, we spent all the money on a thermal camera, so this is what we
he
got.
was a world traveler and adventurer well before he was a TV star, so he does kind of have that cultural perspective. Something I think is neat too. Several years back, he spoke at the Chicago Ghost Conference back when he was doing Destination Truth, and during his keynote speech, he talked about how he doesn't believe in ghosts. He's a cryptozoological guy, but ghosts are what gets views, so he goes out and does ghost hunting. So he's out there like as a skeptic when he was doing that show, Ghost Hunting. He didn't believe the stuff that he was going to find anything. So I think that kept him extra honest.
Aha.
And now I think this is a good segue into what I think is the most interesting story of 2018. And when you talk about someone that's a cryptozoology guy versus a ghosts guy, and I hate how we're trying to define people by their genre of weirdness that they're into. But it is good that people have certain focuses. Some people are really into UFOs. Some people are really into ghosts. Some people are really into Bigfoot. But Nick Redfern is mainly a cryptozoology guy. And he'll even say that he doesn't know many ghost stories. And when we had him on the show earlier, and we interviewed him and asked him a ghost story of his own, he's like, "Oh, I've got too many ghost stories."
Yeah, that was up at Shooting Star.
Yeah, and he didn't even have that many, but he was still willing to share one at least. But a cryptozoology guy whose book on the Slender Man really affected a lot of what I was thinking about this year. And that's because we started talking about tulpas when we were talking about people seeing Santa Claus in real life last year. And you guys would not equate seeing Santa Claus to seeing the, like Bigfoot, right?
No.
You don't think of it like that.
Because
Bigfoot
seems like an
Bigfoot isn't
animal.
just sitting in the mall in a throne.
Right, okay.
Does he sit on a throne in the
That
woods?
would be great. I don't think anybody did like Santa Bigfoot on the throne. We gotta talk to Jay
But the thing is,
about that.
you would say, okay, if someone told you, I saw a UFO, I saw like a flying saucer in the sky, and it was unbelievable. I've never seen anything like that in my life. You'd be like, oh my God, I think I believe you. If you said, people like, I saw a ghost, I saw a Civil War soldier walk through my bedroom, and I've never seen anything like it. We've had that in Madison. People have seen Civil War soldiers at Camp Randall right here. And they're like, yeah, I can believe that because it could be a ghost of a Civil War soldier who died here. It could be a recording, like a haunting, like it somehow was taped, the stone tape theory.
Yep.
And so that's believable. But when somebody says to you, I saw Santa Claus, you want to punch him in their stupid face.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
so violent.
true. Right.
Okay, okay.
We get passionate about this stuff.
I just don't like liars.
I saw Hanukkah Harry once.
I saw the Tooth Fairy.
I know you saw the tooth fairy. It doesn't make me want to punch you, Wendy. That's not what I mean.
Thank you. Okay, good.
But what it means is that it's just you feel like when somebody says they saw something ridiculous or something that's obviously fictional, it like you feel like they're making fun of you. Oh, you saw a UFO? I saw Santa, jackass. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So and so that brings me to what I think is the most fascinating thing that I've been reading about and researching in 2018, and that's tulpas. And Nick really brings it forward in his book, the Slender Man Mysteries, and he throws in a little exploitation stuff too in there, which is obviously I enjoy that part of the work. But this idea that the Slender Man stabbing happened the day after they talked about it on Coast to Coast. I mean, we've talked about this many times, and Allison, you talk about it right in the book,
Right.
in Nick's book.
Yeah, because I heard it, happening almost in real time. So the idea of tulpas or our reality being more malleable than we would think. I mean, I think that is coming to fruition. I mean, it is becoming more popular, more accepted, and I think the borders of our reality. We're not building the wall fast enough because things are coming through.
That's right.
And I'm really, really excited about that, especially when you think about like chaos magic, for example, the ideas that these constructions that we make, like Superman, for example, when I said that, everybody here, got a clear picture of Superman in their mind that you could call him
definitely
in
the
a
Christopher
ritual.
Reeve version. Just
Right.
saying.
That you could call him in a magical ritual. You could call that energy in. The idea that these are energies that we can play with as human beings. We have this power to reshape our reality using these constructions, and that they do have some reality.
It's too easy to say, the Tibetan thought form, the tulpa, and because it's not really. I think we're misstating the Buddhist belief by saying that it comes from Buddhism, because they do have these ideas of several souls and emanations happening of a soul from your head. You think about something, you contemplate something, you can make something happen, but it's really a theosophist. It's really an early 20th century idea, this idea of the thought form. It's kind of borrowed from Buddhism and then
By
transformed.
Madame Blavatsky.
Right, Madame Blavatsky.
We like Madame Blavatsky.
That's right. We talked about her with Gary Lackman earlier this year. And Alexandra David Neal, I'm not sure if I say it right because there's an accent mark.
Alexandra David Neal. Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah, and she's the one who basically gives us this idea of the tulpa. In she quote, magic formations generated by a powerful concentration of thought. And, she said that these, monks that she was studying in Tibet, she was saying that they would make tulpas to do the housework.
Oh my God. How can I get
convenient.
the guidebook
How can I
on
get
that?
a
Come
tulpa
on. That is what my Christmas present should have been, Mike. The
But, right.
guide to
Nice.
house cleaning.
That sounds like a Menahuni, though, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's all good.
But, okay, so we get into it. So the Slender Man then becomes a tulpa that people see in real life because there's so much psychic energy focused on it. Santa Claus becomes something that we see in real life because so many people believe in Santa Claus. My daughter was talking about Santa today. She's like, where'd Santa go? I'm like, he's at the North Pole. What's he doing? He's sleeping. Because he had to deliver all those presents. He's like, he worked really hard.
He's in a sugar coma,
across
too.
the international.
Aw.
And so, you have that, people see that. Wendy sees the Tooth Fairy because she believes in the Tooth Fairy.
Can we hear a little bit of that story again?
Oh, when I was young, I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw a lady with long flowing hair and a long dress standing right next to my dresser. And it was a Tooth Fairy.
Wow. What made you think it was the Tooth Fairy?
I don't know. I just knew for some reason.
you have a tooth?
Pliers? She had
Did you have a
pliers
tooth
and she
on-
was yanking.
Yeah, did you have a tooth on offer under the pillow or something?
I actually don't remember, but I told my family and they've loved that story ever since.
They've never let you forget
They've
it.
never stopped mocking me for
Wendy
it.
saw the Tooth Fairy.
I love that story.
Yeah, me too.
But this idea that, it really comes up, and Nick talks about it in the Slender Man. We talked about it in the Santa Claus episode, and there's an X-Files episode about it where like a tulpa gets created and it goes off on its own and it's killing people, and it's played by a guy from Rancid, sweet
Nice.
band. But then it starts coming up later in the Beast of Bray Road movie. The documentary that Seth Breedlove made this year, halfway through, it goes from cryptozoology, so this idea that there is a beast of Bray Road, like sneaking around southeastern Wisconsin, even though I feel like if there was a werewolf sneaking around in southeastern Wisconsin, we would have seen, see him all the time. Because there's the more mutilated cows and stuff. But that's kind of why it switches to, okay, there's a Beast of Bray Road as cryptozoology, to the Beast of Bray Road as like this evil entity that's been brought forth from the other side. And it changes to like, we conjured the Beast of Bray Road with like satanic rituals and magic and things.
Oh, man.
Magic. Right. So we're moving from things that, I would say in the 70s, you get stories of Bigfoot and stories of cryptids, and it's straight physical materialist, kind of like Lauren Coleman was talking about it this year in Michigan. He was saying that he thinks that it's completely, he's a complete materialist. And that's what Nick Redfern said too, until he started learning more and more about people seeing things that are obviously fictional and obviously not real. So are we conjuring Bigfoot in our heads? Are we conjuring the Beast of Bray Road in our heads? Are we conjuring Santa?
What else are we conjuring? The Slender
Right.
Man.
Yeah, did we conjure Donald Trump into his presidency? That's what Gary Lockman's latest book is all about, Dark Star Rising, that people made that happen through black magic.
Well, I think he's destined to lead the Space Force to victory over the aliens from the Oumuamua when they come here to invade.
Yeah. The aliens from Oumuamua. That's great.
I would read a Trump Xenu comic book.
Do you think he's going to even be able to pronounce Oumuamua?
I can barely pronounce it, but I got that vowel problem. But I'm just really excited about 2019 because I think things are changing for better and for worse. But we're seeing that we have more power over reality than we might have thought.
And this is why I don't like actually going back to the New York Times and NBC News talking about the old stuff. UFOs and disclosure what is Robert Bigelow going to deliver us an alien body? It's the same crap they've been selling for a long time, and it's the same argument people have back and forth. I think we talk about like Dean Radin's book, Real Magic, and he goes into how he's proving magic in the lab, but you got to do the ritual. You gotta twirl around 3 times, say abracadabra, and conjure a picture of Sabrina the Teenage Witch in your head in order to actually, and then it'll work. You have to say Bloody Mary in the mirror.
And you got to believe it. It's
Right.
not just the ritual, but the ritual helps you believe it. This is a compelling area, like with the placebo and the nocebo effect. Something real is happening there that affects our reality. And this is something we need to look into closer.
And if we get pulled back into the old arguments, I think I just think we're going to lose it. I almost feel like the government wants us to talk about disclosure, because then we're not talking about how the fact when they're tracking Santa's radar on Christmas Eve, they're actually tracking something. Yeah, and so when I see that, when we just watched the Area 51, or tried to make it through the first half of the Area 51 documentary on Bob Lazar.
Right. Yeah. Over
And-
Christmas, this is what we do, people.
Yeah, and it's the same old. And if you guys aren't familiar with Area 51, probably listen to another podcast.
Right. I'm sure we got a primer in there somewhere.
But the thing is that this guy said he worked at Area 51 in the 1980s. He worked there for a few weeks, and then his mind was blown because he saw these flying saucers. And then he immediately went to the news, and he was a whistleblower. And he can't prove his credentials. He says the government took away his MIT degree.
Right. And it's, we were listening to this when it was first coming out 30 years ago. So
Yeah.
so to us, it's nothing new. And like Scott was saying at the beginning of the podcast, it's like everything old is new again, that, time is cyclical, like it's coming back on itself. And,
Like fashion.
right. Yeah. And maybe
Right.
maybe that's what's happening here. But,
Except hypercolor T-shirts are never coming back.
I don't know, Mike.
way.
But I'm just saying, with Art Bell's
Zubas?
with Art Bell's passing in 2018, it just felt right to me that all these things, these topics that he brought to the forefront, but to the forefront in the middle of the night. I mean, how much to the forefront was that? And now it's on the pages of the New York Times. Now it's respectable to talk about alien spacecraft. So yes, these documentaries, I think just the footage itself would be interesting without all the the trumped up stuff that like the voiceover and the showy music and all that, to try to make it weirder. I mean, it's weird enough as it is, and I think there is something in there of value.
I agree, and I think the discussion's worth having, but I mean, I feel like we've been having the same discussion for a long time. And that's why the thing is, okay, Harvard researchers are seeing something weird on this craft that's coming out, that's 15 million miles away. They're seeing things that are not what you would say natural effects, natural gravity, natural light, things like that.
Which reminds one of Independence Day, when they have this object, near Earth object, and it's decelerating. Well, in this case, it accelerated when it came, when it came closer to the sun.
Yeah, and actually, that exactly what I was going to say. And maybe I'll have a link. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes. But it's from Vox, and it really gets into how this trajectory of this thing came in, and it was definitely between Earth and the sun, so it was very close. And its trajectory going away, somehow it accelerated. So of its own volition, at this point, they know how things move through space, and this thing is like 25,000 kilometers ahead of where they think it should have been by now. So how did that happen?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, there's even a TED Talk about it. People look into Oumuamua. Hey, I said it that time without stumbling.
There you go.
And I get a cookie now.
Why it's excited is because they just haven't talked about, and that's almost like Rendezvous with Rama, kind of in the the Arthur C. Clarke book. That's almost one of the ways we could detect alien life may not be because the government is hiding them in the Nevada desert.
In the actual TED Talk, one of the researchers said that they did originally name it Rama because of that story. And
cool.
But then they changed it because a Hawaiian telescope discovered it, so they wanted to give it a Hawaiian name.
And that funny thing is also in the book why they call it Rama is because when they're looking at interstellar objects, they ran out of Greek and Roman deities and mythology to name things after. So then they started moving to because Arthur C. Clarke lived in Sri Lanka, then they moved. He was thinking Hindu deities, but you could just go through as we go through the sky. Okay, now we're out of Hindus. Now let's go to Hawaiian. Now we're at Hawaiian. Now let's go to different the Germanic or whatever. So that's a fun thing. Interesting also. Morgan Freeman owned the rights to Rendezvous with Rama for years and tried to get it made and just could never get funding.
Aww. That would be
and now
sweet.
he's like 100.
You can still narrate.
No, he's not that old, but I think he could still do it. Now with all this, new fascination and all these strange things, do it.
Well, obviously, I haven't read it for about 25 years, but I remember it's an awesome book and I recommend it. But that's the thing; it's a new way of looking at stuff, and that's what I'm excited about. That's the thing in 2018 why Tulpas excited me because I never really thought of this idea that we could, think things to life. Like it seems so ridiculous to me until you have these reports of people seeing things where there was a ton of psychic energy behind it. And I think that's why it's so fascinating. That's why I'm interested in talking about it in 2019 because, okay, we can't find the Bigfoot poop. You know what I mean? Like we can't get the ghosts on film in the way we want to. It's like, oh, there's a noise. I got the EVP. It says it loves me. It loves me.
We do know that there's a nocebo and placebo effect. We do have some research based information on exactly what you're talking about, Mike. And, we have tons of beliefs around it. We have tons of people out there, practicing chaos magic and other rituals, to try to summon this power.
Right. And so let's summon some more Patreons in 2019.
All right.
We're having a chaos ritual every month. You guys can check that out at OthersidePodcast.com/donate.
Let's do it.
But either way, those were our favorite things in 2018. Time Bleeds. Are we being haunted by ourselves? Josh Gates and the Search for the Afterlife. Make sure you check that out. Look up Oumuamua. It's going to blow your mind. This is all going to be in the show notes. And then Tulpas. Thoughts are things. Be careful what you think about because you don't want it showing up under your
That's
bed.
right. And those show notes you can find at othersidepodcast.com/229.
And talking about paranormal highlights, and I said this to Wendy earlier today, my paranormal highlight of all of the places we've been all over the country this year, the highlight for me is every month getting together with those awesome Patreons, sharing our stories, feeling the sense of awesome community of us fellow weirdos.
And all the cool stuff that they've tipped us off to, and some crazy movies that we've watched, and some incredible places that we got to visit.
And wonderful people we got to visit.
Right.
Including Chelsea and Chuck.
Yes.
And we see Dr. Ned at almost every show. And so obviously we shout out to Dr. Ned in every episode because he's at the Patreon level where he gets a shout out in every
Thanks, Ned.
And we love Dr. Ned.
Yes.
Yeah. And okay. And the thing is, we're actually finishing up right here, and then we're going off to do a Patreon hangout tonight. And we're looking forward to it. Now, the song this week, and you're going to be able to find the song on Spotify and find it on Bandcamp. The song this week is inspired by 2018 was the year of the dog. And unfortunately, it was supposed to be a very unlucky year. And that's what the song this week is about. It's called Year of the Dog, and you can check that out at Spotify. There'll be a link in the show notes at othersidepodcast.com/229. Now, everybody, let's get a plug and go party for the new year. Allison, where can they find more about you?
They can find more about me at MilwaukeeGhost.com and HawaiiParacon.com.
Okay. Scott, if they want to read some of your fascinating writing in the paranormal, where can they find that?
What'sYourGhostStory.com is the website, and I'll do a little year in review of the top 10 coolest haunted locations I've been to this past year.
Fantastic. And Wendy, where can they find us?
They can find us at othersidepodcast.com and also at sunspotuniverse.com. It's Twitter. I'm Sunspot Wendy. And
I'm Sunspot Mike.
All right. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. I wish you the best, and I look forward to seeing what 2019 has to bring us. It's going to be a weird year, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at othersidepodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
It says it loves me. It loves me. If you have an alien sex cult, please send me your information.